Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about Jeff Cavalier from Athlean-X again. Finally, someone else has come out who's a big name in YouTube who's saying, look guys, ketogenic diets aren't all that great. Now, other people will be like, well, there's other people who are against it. No, you got a bunch of vegans who are against it. I mean, I've been against it for a while now, and I've been talking about it as someone who has used keto diets who said, hey, these things are extreme, they're stupid. More and more emerging data shows that they're dangerous. They're stupid and dangerous. And the only people you normally see coming out against it are the vegans, but they have an ethical axe to grind. They have a philosophical and an ethical axe to grind, so it's obvious why they would state that. So it's really kind of a bias there in regard to that. But in my case, I'm a little bit different. I'm someone who believes eating meat every day can be perfectly healthy. I have family who are currently cattle ranchers here in Texas. I live in Texas. Our economy here is impacted by red meat, okay, because of the cattle and everything else. I technically, because of family members who I care about who are involved in that industry, I technically have a bias towards consuming red meat, which would be for most people on a ketogenic diet, that would be your biggest staple in your diet. Therefore, I technically would have a bias in the direction of ketogenic diets. The problem is that I feel that they suck so bad that I can't be biased towards them, even though I might have a personal bias towards it. Because I mean, I could end up getting back in the ranching business at some point in my life, guys. It could totally happen. It could happen. Not like I didn't live on a ranch ever and work on a ranch, and I have. So, I mean, in that case, it would be in my best interest for people to be eating more beef, wouldn't it? It would. But the fact of the matter is I can't, because a true ketogenic diet is bad for you, and it's terrible for people who care about body composition and performance. And I love that Jeff came out and said, look, I've never discussed this before, and I feel like it because so many people are asking me about it. He's like, I don't want to bash on it completely, but I want to make some points. It's like, first of all, people who act like you can't eat carbs and be lean and athletic, and that it's the only way, the keto diet or low carb diets are the only way, he goes, it's bullshit. And he said that, it's bullshit. And he showed his abs. He's like, I stay in this shape year round. He pointed out he follows a balanced diet of whole foods, and includes carbs every day, doesn't exclude any food groups, and he eats carbohydrates every single day. Every day, and he stays at probably, he looks to be under 10%, he's probably 9 or 10% body fat. He's like, I stay here 365 days a year. So I'm living proof that that's nonsense, that carbs aren't the problem, insulin isn't the problem. Because again, he stays that way 365, says he has never done a ketogenic day in his life. He's never had a day in his life that would fall under that diet. Does just fine. Now, he does tell people, look, if something gets you in shape and it helps you and you can do it consistently, fine. I don't want anyone to stop doing something that's working for them. If they're healthy, their blood work is good, they've lost fat, they're gaining strength. Okay, whatever works for you. You have to find what works for you. He goes, but this diet isn't going to work for most people that well. And he said, you know, a lot of people will come in and say, well, I feel great on it. And he's like, well, that's because you lost weight. And if you had lost weight on any other diet, you would probably feel good also if you started out fat and had low energy. It's like, it's not the ketogenic that did it. It's the fact that you lost weight. And he's like, and I have eating plans that I follow myself that I put out that are out there that you can see that would do the same thing for you. The biggest points, though, that he made was that, number one, he doesn't want to hear about something you can't sustain, because he's like, if someone's been doing it for 5 years and it's great and they're in perfect health, okay, fine, whatever works for you. But he pointed out that 5-year number wasn't thrown out completely arbitrarily. He said, because if someone has been following a diet for just 1 year and they're doing okay, he's not interested. What? He's not interested, because fitness is lifestyle changes. If you can only follow a diet for a year, maybe a little longer before you can't stand it anymore, it's not worth messing with. That these sort of diets can be useful for losing weight really quick, and that's the same thing. That's the same point I made, which is why people sent me the video. They're like, hey, you need to check this out, because he's making the same point that you do. Ketogenic diets are the fastest weight loss diet known to man. I do keto to make weight for meats, but I don't do keto for a month. I do keto starting 10 days out, because you drop water weight. That's a big chunk of the weight that you lose on keto is water weight. Anytime you're losing more than about 2 pounds in a week, it's always water. You don't burn 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds of fat off of your body in a week. It does not happen. Unless you are 500 pounds, biologically it doesn't happen. It's water weight you drop on these diets. And they're great for quick water weight loss, but you have to understand they're temporary. And he pointed that out. And that's what the data shows. They're inferior for fat loss. In other words, if your maintenance calories is 3,000 and you eat 2,200, if you eat a high carb diet versus a ketogenic diet on 2,200, you will lose more fat on the higher carb diet. People who want to argue against that, you're full of it. The data in the metabolic ward is overwhelming, that the vast majority of people will have the potential to lose more weight on the higher carb diet. It's that some people, it's the diet adherence from the keto that works because they're able to keep their calories lower due to their own adherence to the diet. That's it. On a calorie-to-calorie basis, you lose slightly less fat than other diets, and you lose more muscle. And that's kind of a key point he also brought up that people need to remember. It's one thing when someone's a noob. It's one thing when you're a noob. You know what? If you're a newbie in the gym and you're eating at all and you're lifting weights, you're going to gain muscle. You're going to gain strength. If you're on any decent program, you're going to gain strength. It doesn't require a calorie surplus, doesn't even require calorie maintenance. If someone is overweight and they start lifting weights, they will gain muscle while they lose weight. All right, it will happen every single time. Only some medical causes could be exceptions, but barring a medical or genetic disorder that's going to stop you from gaining muscle, you will gain muscle on any diet when you're a noob. Even if the scale is going down, unless you're really skinny, if you're fat already and the scale's going down, you're going to gain muscle. That's not the point. What he pointed out, people will follow a diet like that and think they're going to gain muscle because they have these other channels who have told them, oh, you can recomposition doing this. You have these con men who all pin a bunch of tren. And I will note that in a minute. Every single person I've ever met who is really strong, who likes keto diets, also loves tren. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. And that includes everyone from Jamie Lewis to Mark Bell. It's not their diet that's allowing them to do what they're doing. It's the fact that they use enough drugs to offset the negatives of the diet. And one could make the argument, if they followed a better diet, they could probably cut their drug doses 10-20% and get the same results. They could probably get better results if they just had a better diet that was more geared towards gaining muscle or even body recomposition, because these diets aren't. But what he pointed out is that, you know, we don't have enough data on this. He said he looked around and found 11 studies testing to see if athletes, not noobs starting out, but actual athletes, in other words, people who have been training for years, if they could keep their muscle mass on a ketogenic diet. And the point he made, not gain muscle, keep the muscle they had. Out of the 11 studies, only 3 of the 11 studies did the athletes maintain all of their muscle mass on the ketogenic diet. 8 out of the 11 studies, they weren't able to keep the muscle they already had on this diet. What does that tell you? That someone who's a fairly advanced lifter, a relatively advanced athlete, if they do this piss poor diet, they will most likely lose muscle mass. Note, I didn't say if they undereat. I didn't say if they go on low calories. I said if they go on a ketogenic diet, the majority of serious lifters and serious athletes will lose muscle mass on the diet. And most of the data out there suggests that. It's difficult to maintain muscle on this diet. I'm not talking about the complete novice, because a complete novice gains muscle no matter what they do. Even on a terrible diet, they gain muscle. So yeah, noobs gain muscle on a ketogenic diet because they're getting enough protein in their training. You take an intermediate lifter, you take someone who's already deadlifting 500 pounds and squatting 400, and you put them on a ketogenic diet. You watch them try to keep the muscle that they have already. Best of luck with that, unless they go on drugs. And if they're already on drugs, they may have to up the dose to keep the muscle that they have. Kind of goes back to the other point of all these guys who run the keto diet, who promote it, who abuse drugs. We know ketogenic diets are bad for your health. They're bad. There are cardiovascular risk associated with this diet. And the newer data emerging should show that better. People who look at it understand that this is a problem. So you're going to abuse drugs with a diet that can promote heart disease. That's a time bomb waiting to happen. I mean, that's stupidity, but that's also the people who are out here promoting these diets. That's the people who are promoting it. And this includes the guys like Jason Whitrock, Brandon Carter, all right, Mark Bell. These guys all abuse anabolics while following a diet that's unhealthy so that they can retain muscle or gain muscle. What does that have to do with fitness? What does that have to do with health? Is this really what we should be promoting? That people are up here promoting a diet that's bad for health, that you have to up the dose on your drugs to keep the muscle that you have on it? Or to gain anything on it, you've got to use even more drugs. That's not a good combination, guys. That's not a good combination at all. It's kind of like the guys that I talk about in the past who stack lifestyle factors and died, guys who abuse anabolics and then abuse cocaine with it. Not a good idea. This is in that same category of not good ideas. And I'm glad Jeff kind of pointed some of that out. He didn't go as hard on it as he could have, but I think he made his points very, very clear. Most athletes will lose muscle on it. It's hard to maintain. Most people aren't going to be able to follow it. And it does needlessly just remove a lot of nutrients and balance in your diet for no real benefit. That it's trendy, it's got fads around it. There are people who promote it and sell it. But it's not a particularly ideal diet. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.